All right, so welcome everyone. Good to have all of you here. Uh, I think many of you are surprised to see me today. Uh, so I'll be taking the session for today, which will continue from day after tomorrow. So hope you're having a great time with the internship webinar so far. I could see many of you are eagerly waiting for today and expecting something different, right? So let me get started with my introduction. My name is Mubin, and I work as a technology head at Emergency as well as WSA. And I'll be taking this masterclass for today's session. As we did in the previous internships also, typically we have our regular project-based internship sessions going on, and one or two sessions we typically try to basically see that the interns are getting a different experience in terms of understanding how things run in the industry from two perspectives. One is from building the career. Say you complete your engineering and you wanted to know what are the career opportunities available in the market and how we can basically prepare yourself for that. That is one angle we bring in our webinars. And other side is like you get more uh, technical awareness in terms of how things are going in the industry, especially, right? Okay. So, all right. So, welcome everyone once again. So, today's talk is about how we can use AI assisted development, not just to develop things faster, but in a smarter way, right? So, let me share my screen as well so that you can see the presentation. Okay. Let me quickly show the slide. Yeah. Let me run a slideshow. Yep. So let me quickly check if you're able to see the slide as well. All right, so I guess my slide is visible now. All of you can see it. Yeah. Thank you for confirming. All right. Just a moment, I'm just checking. Okay. Yeah, I think you confirmed it, right? So before I start, can you just tell me what you did in the last 5 or 6 sections on learning how to build the MERN Stack based food delivery app? Have you started with the backend, like building the routes, schema, etc., or did you start with the front end, which is React? How is it going, folks? Backend you started, okay. All right, started with the backend, very well, going very well. Okay, understand, right? All right. So let me check with you in terms of uh, what do you think is the most important thing in backend, right? The backend has many things, right? So far, in whatever you learned, can you tell me what is the most important thing you learned in backend? Backend logic, okay. You mentioned backend in routers setup and schema as well. Okay, how to handle the users, server logic, APIs, schema. Okay, login of response back, creating business logic, middleware. Okay, I think you learned many things in just a week's time. Okay, great, good to know that. Okay, how to create server, how to connect MongoDB, API calling, connecting server, installing packages. Okay, how to connect with Mongoose and Postman, backend logic. All right, great. So do you think it's necessary to do this the way we are doing currently? Is it really required to do the way we are writing the code, learning the concepts, right? Understanding what is the architecture, then learning how to use Node.js, writing simple JavaScript program, then learning how to use Express framework, right? Understanding what is REST API, and learning MongoDB, NoSQL, and right one by one, step by step approach. Is it really required in today's AI based application development, which has become very popular, or we are simply wasting our time? What do you feel? So today's talk is revolved around this, right? So many a time engineers ask this question, right? So do we have to do engineering at all, right? This question pops up, right? Now we can write few lines of basically text, give it to AI assistant like Claude Code, and it is going to generate a very beautiful, uh, good-looking web application which is functional as well as usable, right? So is traditional structured way of coding still important for engineers to learn, or can we shift from like just using vibe coding and building application? That's my question. Okay. So let me move to the next slide so that you can try to answer. So again, today's topic is about AI assisted development, coding smarter, not just faster, right? We all know AI can be used to generate code in a very fast way, and we can see all over, like in the internet, people are building applications even if they don't know how to write a single line of code, right? So people who are non-engineers, they're able to also build applications. Such news comes right very often. Now, let me ask this question, right? So can you see the code on screen? Right. So there is a code which is generated by developer A. Both are developed using AI, right? Since you know MERN Stack, you know to some extent what backend route creation looks like. And here, two code is generated. One is generated by developer A, again using AI by prompting. Second is developed by developer B, which is also by prompting. I'm not showing the prompts here, right? But by looking at the code, right, or and the way it is generated in first sight, do you think both are correct, right? So this is an endpoint wherein it will generate, it will help you to basically place an order. It's a post endpoint, right? So I just prompted AI to add an endpoint to place an order, right? Which code is better? Is it code A better or code B better? Both are generated using AI. What do you think? You have to tell the reason. Okay, simply you cannot say code B or code A. Can you tell me the reason? Yeah, everybody's telling B because B is green. Yeah, real Krish, I appreciate you to be very honest. Because it's green, right? Everybody's telling B. Okay. Because it works in every situation, the comment is also added, right? Assume the comment is not there. Would you have been figured out? You're able to figure out if the comment was not there. All right. It's not about code readability, right? Not really, right? So if you look at this code, both the code looks similar, right? We'll come back to this. What I'm trying to tell you is that if we blindly try to basically accept the output which is generated by AI, then you don't know what is the consequence of it, right? So you're telling my voice is not audible. Who's saying that? Somebody told. Okay, only maybe for some of you, Iman Said, maybe you can check on this. Right. So here, we'll come back to this a later time. So if we use the code A, it is not relying on the data which is available on the server. So it's kind of a security loophole. We'll come back to this, right? You can fool the backend by injecting some data which is not validated backend, and I can even basically buy a meal which is worth 500 just by basically paying an amount of 5. We'll come back to this later, right? So the idea is that AI is a very powerful tool. It helps you do things in a very faster way, right? They say 10x, 100x productivity, right? It multiplies the skill of a developer, and it also has a negative effect, right? If you're a skilled developer, you can get things done in a very faster way. Whereas if you're unskilled and you don't have the proper knowledge, typically including me, it multiplies the mistakes just very fast, right? So I've been using AI extensively for building some of the internal applications, right? So right now also I am using Cloud. I hope you can see my screen, right? So this is agentic AI wherein I'm using Claude to build an application. But interestingly, today, right, when I was basically adding more features, it so happened that my entire database got wiped out, right? So, kind of, I was trusting the AI too much, even though it prompts me very often before taking any destructive actions. It so happened that the generated code, right, which was working till today, failed, right? This have been working for maybe last 2 weeks on this project, but it is able to generate a very nice build application, right? You can see this, right? Application, and I'm trying to build an internal application for scheduling of the courses which we have basically many courses running in a year, and multi-center, etc., right? Different places we are having different basically locations and so on. Different rooms are there, right? Capacity is there. It so happened that when I was basically adding more features, it wiped out all our schedule. Entire schedule got wiped out. All the batches which was there, right, which was currently running in parallel, got wiped out. So what I'm trying to tell you is that yes, AI can be used for the powerful tool. It has to be used very carefully. It multiplies a skilled developer, and it multiplies a careless one's mistake just as fast, right? So your job isn't just not to type, it's also to think more clearly, and specifically you have to review the code which has been generated as well as test it well, right? So treat AI uh, like a fast, eager junior developer, right? So don't trust it fully. It's like you're a senior developer or you're an architect, right? You're trying to give instructions to AI, and there are certain limitations of the AI. Let's try to understand the behavior of AI, which you have to be familiar with, right? So it does not have enough memory as such, right? So AI has limited memory. So you might have used AI platforms like Claude, right? In Claude, you might have used something like Sonnet or Opus, right? Sonnet 4.6 or Opus, etc., right? And they have something called as a context window size. Anybody knows what is the context window size for Claude, Sonnet, or Opus? Can you tell me? Does anyone know? And by the way, what is context window? What does it mean? Anyone can tell? Expecting your responses, folks. Right. If you're not sure, you can say you're not sure. Yeah, it's an LLM model. Yeah, but does it have something called as memory, like humans? Right? Can it remember everything you communicated with it, or is it limited? And what is the typical memory size which is provided by, let's say, Claude, etc.? No idea. It's around 1 million. Okay, so similarly there are other models which will be lower, etc. All right. So for us humans, right, we can remember a lot of things, whereas for AI, if you see, right, it has a specific limit for different models, and because of which, right, it forgets certain things, etc. So one very important thing to understand is that, yes, treat it like a junior developer, right? It does not, it does exactly what you said, right? Including the dumb thing you mean, right? You can tell whatever dumb thing is it, it will try to basically follow. Yes, now basically there are guardrails added to AI. You cannot do anything and everything, right? For example, you cannot tell it to basically hack a website, right? There are some guardrails available in it, right? Now, AI produces a lot instantly. Volume is never the problem, right? It predicts plausible code and correct. It may not always basically produce the correct code, right? In terms of memory, it forgets your schema. For example, in database, you generate write a schema, etc. Your conventions it may forget, right? Your last week's decision may forget. You've been, let's say, communicating with for a long time, it may forget what you discussed with the last week. So you must resupply the context, right? That is one of the important things you have to see, right? Often, if you keep chatting, right, in ChatGPT, etc., you see after a long time, it will forget things. Hallucinations also happen. No accountability, very important thing. If it ships a bug, suppose you generate the code and there is a bug in the code which goes unnoticed, right? And you commit the code in GitHub. Can you blame AI, or let's say your team members will blame you? Whom will your team members uh, blame? You cannot say I used AI to generate the code and it was the mistake of AI, right? So there is no accountability as such, right? If it ships a bug, it is your fault, right? That's what is going to be. Now, what are the different ways you meet AI in an editor, right? So I'm sure, right, you would have used this in the past, right? So have you used VS Code along with Copilot? How many of you used VS Code along with Copilot? And how did you use it? Yes. Okay. So what is the purpose you used Copilot for? What does it do? To auto generate the code? Okay. So in VS Code, if we see, right, yeah, so I'm getting a lot of questions also here. How did I earn money? Okay, maybe may not be relevant for this webinar. You say AI is good, but most of the companies are restricted to use AIs like ChatGPT, etc. Not many companies. Most of the companies are open to use AI nowadays, but there are certain things which you have to follow in terms of security, right, privacy, etc., and ethics, right, and so on. Okay, maybe I used to repeat the code, right? So you might use autocomplete, etc. You write a comment, write a function, it automatically complete it, right? So let me quickly show you, yeah, for debugging and so on, right? So let me see if I have VS Code available with me. Visual Studio Code. I'm opening Visual Studio Code. Let me create a new folder, right? In new folder, test project, create, open, right? So we'll create a file here. Let's say stack uh, dot js, right? Right? You might have used something like this, right? Implement a stack editing in JavaScript, right? Is it possible to automate this? Can I automate automatically generate the code here? Is it possible? How can you do it? Right. So you can typically select a model here, right? Or right, etc. You can automatically generate the code, right? You can use codecs and things like that, right? So here I'm not going to show you how to do it, right? But I'm just asking you whether you use this or not, right? So typically you can generate the code by using code editors like VS Code, etc. But they are limited, right? And second thing is, right, you can use ChatGPT or Claude directly, wherein you describe what you want to do, like generate the code to, let's say, create this recipe, right, etc. Right, or give me the front end using React to display the dashboard for so and so requirement, right? So we can do such basically type of prompting in ChatGPT and Claude. But the real way to basically use AI is using something called as agentic AI using Cloud Code and Cursor. So let me quickly show you how to use Cloud Code briefly, right, to give an idea the difference between using prompting, using ChatGPT, and writing Cloud Code, right? So I'm trying to show you a very initial uh, right steps on how you can build a project using Cloud Code, right? So let me say project slash right. Okay, so what is the agentic uh, AI based coding, right? So here I'm running Claude, right? So Claude code is available, and typically you have to get a pro subscription for Claude code. There are other basic tools like ChatGPT, OpenAI based codecs, etc. to use agentic AI to generate the codes, right? So I'm showing you how you can even generate code by doing vibe coding, but you will face a lot of issues. I just wanted to basically have a working session for you, right? So first and foremost thing, what you can do is that right here, there's an empty project, right? So initially you have to have a proper requirement specification, and then we can get implementing the features, right? So I'll say, okay, I want to develop a, let's say, React based web application to display weather, right? I should be able to choose the city for which I want to get weather, right? Have today's in the home page, right? Okay, after selection of city, display today's weather, right? As well as a weekly weather report, right? All right, define. So this I can do prompting like this, right? I can keep on giving adding requirements, right? But at times I've seen people simply specifying that build a better app, right? So those type of prompts is not going to help you. So important thing in basically prompting is that have a clarity on what exactly the requirement is, right? Now here you can even use this agentic AI not just to write code. You can use it for generating the documents as well as for planning, right? So I'm showing you a working session how you can build a weather app using React by using Cloud Code and agentic AI effectively, right? Right. I would like to make it as a usable, right, weather app which can be published in internet, right? Prepare requirements doc for this. All right, so I'm going to generate requirement specification initially, right? You can see this Cloud Code is processing, it's showing how many tokens it's using, etc. So I have a paid Cloud account, and typically the Pro account is around $20, right? And you can also use it. And there are other basically LM models also available, but since this is one of the most popular and effective ones, I'm using it, right? So it's asking me questions, right? So it's called tooling, right? So AI will ask questions before it is going to change some files, right? So first we'll create something called as a requirements document, right? So it has created the requirement specification, right? I can open it. Let me say open, right? And okay, I can say code. Okay, it's asking me more questions, right? So you can see here, it has created a requirements.md covering functional requirements like city, search, autocomplete, optional geolocation, today's weather, details, 7-day forecast card, right? Temperature, etc. It is giving functional requirements, non-functional requirements, the stack which should be used. Okay, so here I mentioned React, so it's suggesting me, right, which basically front-end stack should be used, like React stack, TypeScript, etc., Tailwind CSS, and so on. What are the weather API options, right? Weather API options could be open Meteo, no API key, simplest for static hosting, right? Open weather map, etc. So before you actually start developing any project, right? So I wanted to highlight that you have to have clarity on the requirements, right? So again, AI assist development is useful if you have a background in software engineering, right? So this I'm able to do because I'm familiar with building code by using something called as SDLC, software development lifecycle. Again, in software development lifecycle, you can use different models, waterfall model, agile model, etc. I'm going to use something called as an agile model to build this project, right? So it's prompting me actually. It's asking questions before making any decision. So there are some questions it's going to ask, right? Weather API. So if you want to get weather information, typically you have to use APIs which will return the weather information. So here it says that okay, we want whether you want to use Open Meteo, which is recommended, no API required, or Open Weather Map. So it's prompting me. I can basically answer. So I'm going to choose one, right? Which language to use? Asking whether you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript. Let me use JavaScript, since many of you are familiar with that, right? It's asking what is the styling to use, Tailwind CSS, right, etc. Let me say Tailwind CSS, which is recommended. Hosting, it's asking, right? Let me use GitHub pages, right, for now. All right. So submit the answers. It is going to again continue, and this process we have to basically follow so that we can start building the project, right? So let me open VS Code also so that we can have a look at it. So I'm opening VS Code. I can open VS Code as well. So notice here, unless Claude completes, we cannot uh, open the code, right? So code is also generated simultaneously. I can see the requirements.md file, right? So it gives requirement specification, right, for the weather app, right? Right. So we can go through this, right? So what is it? A React-based single web application that allows user to search a city, then view that city's current weather condition and a 7-day weather forecast, right? So a lot of functional requirements are there: city selection, current today's weather, weather forecast, right? Units and preferences. And so since it's a very simple application, right, we don't have to basically spend a lot of time in reviewing, etc. Important thing here is that it has also given something called as an application architecture, right? So this is also important. So it is given application architecture and deployment plan. So typically, you have to write first one the requirement specification. Post that, we can ask it to basically create the design document also, right? Create an architecture design doc, which includes the architecture and implementation details. Right. I'll also ask it to use something called as right, create mermaid diagrams, right, as appropriate. Right. So I'm not directly starting to code here, right? Here I am first creating the requirement specification, right? Since we have less time, I'm not basically reviewing the code, the documents thoroughly. So after creating the requirement specification, I'm trying to create a design document, right? So it's taking some time to create a design document. All right, let's wait. Okay. So I can also monitor what it's doing. Control O typically will show the progress. Right here, it's taking some more time. Okay. So meanwhile, let's have a look at the uh, document here. Right. So notice it mentioned which tech stack to use also, right? It's going to use JavaScript as well as React, right? And it's going to do linting. Linting is mostly syntax checks, etc. Right? Then it's going to use OpenMeteor based API, right? For getting the weather information, and this is the folder structure, right? All right. So it's telling that the deploy the pages using GitHub Actions. Let me see if I can show this also, how we can deploy it on GitHub. Since it's static pages, it's fine, right? So in your case, I think you will be using a deployment. You'll deploy it to maybe some free hosting, right? Platform like Netlify, I believe, right? So I think Richa would have informed you regarding that. Let me quickly check whether it's done, right? Yes, right. So we have the architecture diagram, etc., created in design.md. So you can see here, right? Flowchart, browser, basically SPA, single page application it is, right? So details has been, all these all the design document has been updated with architecture diagram, component diagram, right? State, shape, sequence diagram, and so on, right? Since if I would not have given this prompt, it would not have generated this. Please understand, right? And implementation details, CI/CD, right? Flowchart for GitHub pages, deployment via GitHub Actions, testing strategy, we test, plus RTL, right? So have you done something like this before, or simply you say, okay, build me a project with so and so? Anybody? Are you getting a taste of this, like how typically projects are built using agentic AI? Yeah, you would have simply given some specific basically input and you would have given the output, right? You typically, okay, give me this function, or write this HTML file for me, or generate the JavaScript function, like that, right? So I'm just showing you, right? This is a very simple basically project. In fact, if the complexity is more, you have to do better prompting, right? This is not the way to do it, right? So since this is simply weather app and time is limited, I'm showing you this, right? Otherwise, we have to give a lot of information. We can add more skills. It even has plugins, right? You can see there's something called as plugins, etc. available. Like you can install front-end plugin, you can install back-end plugin. You have skills also, right? A lot of skills are available. I can just press this, right? Here currently I have not installed any skills, right? You can install a lot of skills, okay, and so on. So which will help you do things faster, right, in a better way. So now if I look at the, let me minimize, sorry. Okay, let me show you the design document. So you can see it, the design document is quite big actually, right? So notice this is an ND file, Markdown. Markdown is generally preferred by, right, developers because it's easy to read, and you can render it, right, in GitHub also, right? So this is the rendered Markdown, right? Sorry, right. So can you see this? Right. So it has created the high-level architecture, right? It says it's a fully client-side single-page application. There is no backend, right? So I mentioned that I wanted to build a front-end application using React. So backend is not there, right? So is that clear? Browser talks directly to the API server and builds the output in static files served from GitHub pages. So also diagram is also created. So notice here this diagram is a mermaid diagram, right? So this mermaid diagram is there. So you can use mermaid diagram or plant UML based text diagram, etc. Right. So have you used this type of diagrams? So mermaid actually you can create using UI also. But advantage is that you can write a text based diagrams which can be rendered, right? So again, this is a common practice. Okay, so somebody is asking, sir, I would like to know how you can get the Claude by using command line like you. So you can install Claude code, right? So please install Claude code. Claude code, right? So we have something called Codex also from, okay, um, right, which is from like OpenAI, like ChatGPT. It's not free, okay. So the Claude code is not free, but there are ways you can get it, right, for free. For example, Codex, they typically give free accounts for 1 month, right? You can try that also, similar to Cloud Code. But if your college can request an academic license, right, student license, sometimes they give. So you can send an email to them. They may give a free account for you for some time, right? So that is the best thing. Or you have to pay $20 per month, right? Okay, so you're able to see this component architecture and things like that. So again, we are not going to discuss in detail about this, right? But importantly, you can see how the app is getting rendered, right, in React, things like that, right? How the Meteo API is getting called, what is the query parameter, right? And things like that, right? So we are not simply asking it to like generate the code. We are doing a proper system design for, by doing prompt engineering, right? It's not that we are doing the design on our own, but this is fine nowadays, right? You can very well use Claude to generate the requirement specification and then further refine it based upon your inputs, the folder structure and so on, right? A lot of details are given. Again, there is no time. So importantly here also, it is how to deploy it, right? So CI/CD right, will be there, right? So anybody knows what this is CI/CD deployment means? Right? Have you heard about this CI/CD? What's the full form of it? Knows what does CI/CD mean? So it stands for continuous integration, right? Continuous deployment, wherein when you make any changes to the code and add any features, you want to deploy it, test it first, and deploy it into production. This process can be automated, right? So there is a way you can automate it. So companies, bigger companies, for example, let's say you're working in a company like Flipkart or Amazon, right? So you can see that they keep on adding new features, small features they keep adding. So how are they able to add such features at a very fast pace, right? They use a very basically rigorous CI/CD pipeline system wherein there is a proper testing framework available, and it gets automated, by the way, right? Everything gets automated end to end, and there is manual review process also. Okay, so let's move on now. Design is ready. What next? What do you think we have to do next? Okay, so can I say implement, right? So I'll say looks good, right? Okay. You don't have to be so casual here, right? So and just kind of acknowledgement. Let's see what AI says now, right? Good. So what does it say? It's asking me whether you want to go ahead and scaffold the project now, right, etc. Folder structure which is given. Since the design is already done, I'm not going to focus on the uh, further basically details, right? So let's say go ahead, right? Okay, let's see what it does, right? This is going to take a lot of time. It will take some time. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay. All right. So I just showed a glimpse of what Cloud Code is, right? So you can do prompting to generate the requirement specification. You can also generate the design. You can review it. You can basically under your supervision, you can do these things as well as start coding. Right? Okay. So skills. Where you might not be good at, right? Or you have to develop these skills. So the anatomy of a prompt that gets good code is something which you have to learn, right? Simply asking AI to do something without knowing these skills is going to hurt you, right? So these 4 points you have to remember. One is called stack context. So what does the context mean? So context is something which AI should know what you're prompting about, right? So you can specify things like which stack you want to use, what is the database schema, what conventions you're following, right? If you have any specific conventions, you need to specify, right? For example, you can say, I want to use X plus versus Mongoose. Here is our order model, right? So you can give a pattern to it. Otherwise, AI will generate its own patterns. Suppose your company says that okay, you have to do certain things in a specific way. You can specify that basically input to AI so that AI remembers it. It matches your style. Second thing is the contract in terms of the input output specifications. You have to inform AI exactly what should be the input and output and what how error should be handled, right? And what should happen when things go wrong. So you have to give a contract, right? More details you have to specify. Third is constraints, right? So in our case, for example, I specified that I wanted to use an API which does not require you to basically create a login, right? Similarly, I can say that, okay, I don't want to build a backend here for now. Just use React and front end and use open APIs available to basically build the system. I can also specify constraints. Example, in your case, right, you may come across situations like this. Let's say restaurant is closed. By the time, let's say you added things in the cart, right, the restaurant is open. But as soon as basically you make the payment, let's say the closing time is there. So you have to give such constraints and say how the AI should handle it. And don't build everything in one shot. You can build things incrementally, one step at a time, right? Okay, so what is meant by good prompting and not so good prompting? Here we can see on the left side, I'm specifying the write an API to apply a promo code for or an order. I don't know whether promo code is applicable for you, but you can take this as an added features, right? So Richa will be asking you to develop a lot of features. Maybe this feature I don't think should explain. Has she explained that you need to add this feature? Do you recall this? Yes or no? Okay, anyone? If not, what you can do is, right, after completing a project, what I would recommend is, okay, so you says yes, okay, promo code is there, good. If not, right, after completing the code, what you can do is, you can use your existing code, right, give it to Claude, right, and you can ask it to basically write an API to apply a promo code to an order. So Claude would definitely basically read your existing design pattern and do it. And you can also give an engineered prompt by specifying an existing basically order structure what you have, right? And give more details and see the difference in the output, right? Okay. So what is the heart of today, right? Bottleneck moved from writing code to verifying it. It is uh, very easy and very fast for AI to basically generate the code, right? What is the problem? What developers are facing now? Developers are able to generate the code, but challenge is the verifying it, right? So much basically thousands of lines of code, tens of thousands of lines of code is being generated. But can you trust AI? No, you cannot trust AI. But it's very important that whatever code is generated, right, it is reviewed. So who will review the code? Should humans review the code or AI review the code? What do you think? Or can you simply trust the code which is generated by AI? What do you think? Not sure? Yeah. So you can definitely ask AI to review the code also, right? Yeah. So somebody is telling humans, right? Can AI review the code which is generated by AI again? Do you think it's a common practice? Can AI review code generated by AI? No? Yes, okay, mixed answers. Yes, it's a common practice nowadays, right? AI generated code is reviewed by AI, right? So typically use the same model to review it. Can also use other models to also review the code generated by some other model, right? It's like you have different humans, right? So I can ask, okay, this person to review my code. I can also ask another person to review the code, right? So it's fine, absolutely do that. But human in the loop is also important. Humans also basically should review the code to find out basically loopholes, etc., right? So bottleneck is in verifying the code which is generated by AI, right? So four lenses that every generation should run through, right? One is correctness. Does it handle unhappy paths? For example, empty cart, right? Suppose you empty the cart, right, and you cancel the order. Does it handle, for example, negative quantity, right? Correctness you have to check, right? Similarly, hallucinations. Can anyone tell me what is hallucination in AI? Have you heard about this term? What does hallucination mean? It's a common term for AI. What does hallucination mean? Let me quickly check if the prompting is done. Yeah, it's still doing it. Let me. So it's asking me for confirmation. I just confirmed. Right. Some commands it will ask whether I can continue or not. Right. I am asking to install the command and continue. Right. So on and off, you'll see that it's asking for permission. Why it's asking for permission? Yeah. So it is just somebody's told that hallucination. It just assumes something which is not even there to generate a false code. Okay. So hallucination typically means it will like struggle to remember things, right? Wayward it will go, right? So you basically it gives wrong answers, right? A confidently gives the wrong answer, but it's wrong, right? A may be very confident in giving that answer is correct, but it's wrong, right? Good, right? So here it's continuing to basically generate the code, right? Installing the npm dependencies, right? So you can observe what is the agent doing, right? It's installing the dependencies, right? It's creating the boilerplate code, right, etc. Initially, it's scaffolding the project, building up the CSS. One by one, it's going to generate the code, right? So hopefully, by the end of this session, everything should get created. All right, so let's revisit the topics. So code is getting generated here, right? This is the ID. You can see the public folder is there. More modules are installed, right? And the white config is there. You can see source code is also there, right? apps.js, like React code is also generated. CSS file is getting generated, etc. Right? Interesting. What do you think? The question is, right? What will you be doing as engineers in the future? Will you be writing code or will you be using AI to generate the code? Let's wait and watch what Claude is going to generate in the end, right? I know uh, many of you are waiting. So, third thing is security, right? Missing validations, trusting the client, hard-coded secrets, etc. Right? So avoid adding your username, password, or avoid adding API tokens, etc. Many a time, right? Beginners do a mistake, right? They sometimes, right, in the authentication code, you simply tend to add the API keys also, which is not correct, right? Last thing, does it fit the rest of the code? Suppose you keep on basically using different AI agents and you've been following a specific style, you get inputs from different places and try to put it, right? There is a misfit, right? So you should not follow some random patterns, right? You should follow the pattern which is already basically being used in the existing code, right? So AI writes the happy path, but you need to follow the, you need to test it, right? So add to cart and place the order works in the demo. Then real user arrives, and these type of problems you can expect, right? Cart is empty. Do we still create a $0 order? Let's say you apply a coupon, right? Then you get a free, basically, order to be delivered, right? So can you still place an order if the order is zero, right? Such things you have to do, right? Order cancel mid payment. What stage does it land in, right? So these type of things, when AI generates the code, it may not be fully aware of. So you have to double check, right? So this is where prompting comes into picture. You have to give more details on what is basically what is that boundary cases you have to follow, what are the negative cases you have to follow, and so on. See, there are some examples here, right, which I discussed previously. For example, promo code applied twice. Does the discount stack? Right? Suppose you say promo code applied twice, right? Suppose if you're not handling it carefully, then basically there will be negative things that's going to happen, right? It's going to end up in a loss, right? So, right, again, hallucination example. Sometimes AI generates code which is incorrect, but it's giving it confidence. So in this case, this code was generated, let's say, by AI. It's showing a function called as populate deep in mongoose, whereas populate function exists in mongoose. Populate deep function does not exist in mongoose. So it's giving with confidence that you can, this code will work, but in fact that function itself does not exist. That's an example of, right, hallucination, right? So coming back to the first question which we had, let me check. Yeah, it's generating the code, right? I'll come back. Yeah. So in the beginning, if you recall, I showed two codes: developer A generated code and developer B generating the code, right? So AI wrote this code and passed code review to a real startup, right? Wherein 500 rupees meal you can basically buy even for 5 rupees. So server says done, right? So that's an attack. This kind of a security hole which some hacker found out, and he was able to basically even place an order for 5 rupees, right? because the AI did not give you the correct code, right? So never trust the client recomplete on the server. The problem was that it was trusting whatever data was given by the client. So client says that, okay, I'm paying 5 rupees. It accepted that. It found a loophole. Somebody found a loophole in the basically code, and it basically gave a wrong basically amount. So we need to basically have guardrails in the server also. So if you're not aware of these things, right, you cannot basically fix the problem. Yes, correct. You need to prompt the code, you need to supervise it. Not supervising also is not enough. You need to review it properly and test it also. Testing is also very important, right? So let me quickly check what is the status. It's still going on. Yeah. So we're almost done here. You can see it's asking whether you want to basically run the lint tool, which is for checking the syntax and any errors, right? It exited. Okay, calling sets indefinitely. It's basically checking the code, and if there are any issues, it's going to fix it on its own, right? So this will continue. Say it's not going to generate the code in one shot, right? Mistakes can happen, and it can correct the mistakes on its own also, right? So again, code size is also increasing. It added components, right? It added basically different basically folders for current weather, right? Search bar it added, right? It added unit toggle, whether it's degree Celsius or Fahrenheit, whether weekly forecast it added, and so on. Right? So components got added, hooks got added, right? React, if you started using React, you will be aware of this, right? Hooks got added, services also got added, geocoding API, weather API backend, right? You can see everything got added. All right. So it's updating the code. Let's wait for some time. So let's move on. So important thing is that never commit code you can't explain, right? So many of time, right, we try to basically say that I have developed a project and this is my code, right? If you can't walk a teammate through the code which you're done and explain, right, then you don't own it. You're just basically hosting it. So if you can explain the code line by line, then it makes sense. If you can't, they can make use of AI, not line by line, at least function by function. You should be able to explain, okay, what this function is going to do. And somebody asks you, okay, what is specific line going to do? You should be able to understand and explain it, right? So never commit a code which can't explain, right? Similarly, what you can do is using AI, you can use it for generating boilerplate code, right? CRUD, basically functions you can generate, writing tests for your unit testing as well as integration testing, refactoring, renaming code, explaining unfamiliar code, right? Suppose somebody else has given code to you, you can use it, AI, take AI's help to explain it. You can even generate a design document like how I showed you, create mermaid diagrams, sequence diagrams, right? Flow charts, etc. can be generated using it. You can use it for debugging and so on, right? Right. So don't completely use it for vibe coding, right, etc. So honest path for interns especially, AI assisted coding you can do. AI assisted not doesn't mean AI dependent, right? So when does the value go up? You can use it for system design, debugging, reading code, specifying precise requirement specification and judgment. When does it value goes down? When you memorize the syntax, right? When you do mechanical typing, just prompting and churning boilerplate code by hand, right? So few things you have to remember is that never paste secret keys, right, or passwords, etc., or client data into chat box, right? Similarly, when you use authentication security, be careful, right, until you are basically proven safe, right? Okay. So this is the final slide. So for beginners, what I would suggest is build one feature, AI assisted, be ready to explain it line by line. Don't do vibe coding initially. You do structured coding to some extent. And if you want to expand the specific functions, expand that function using AI, understand the code, and see to that if somebody asks you what this code is, you're able to explain it to the other person, right? So AI is a power tool. It multiplies the skill and carelessness alike. So what I mean is that yes, if you use it properly by having the background knowledge, it is going to help you to do things 10x, 100x, etc. But if you don't have a background, simply do vibe coding, you can end up in a big issue later on, right? So I explained that databases are getting deleted in even in production basically sites, right? Prompt with context, contract, constraints, and small steps, right? Should know basically what to prompt and how effectively you can prompt it. Review for correctness. After the AI generates the code, review for correctness. Check for hallucinations. I showed you an example wherein it generated a code when the function it believed it existed, it did not exist, right? Check for security issues as well as fitment. So what is fitment? Fitment is nothing but, say you have already written a code, you do some prompting, it generates a different basically programming style or pattern, right? If it doesn't fit in the current basically coding style or architectural basically design pattern, that's not good, right? And last but not the least, never commit the code you can't explain, right? At least at a high level you should be able to explain what this code is going to do, right? So I just briefly explained what AI can be used to do and how it should be used and what are the consequences if AI is not used effectively, right? Any questions you have, feel free to ask questions. I'll be happy to answer. Yeah. So coding is done. It's using curl to perform initial test. Okay, let's see whether it works. All right. It says it failed with exit code. Let's use a different port, it says. Okay. Yep. Let me open this as well just to see whether it works or not. Yes. Okay. The skill is missing, that's not able to run it. It's automatically asking me to start the browser. I can do that on my own. I don't have to rely on Cloud to start the server. Let me check. Yeah. So we have the app running, right? So it hardly took maybe half an hour, 45 minutes to generate this weather app. Okay. I'm not sure whether it's going to work. Let me type Bangalore, right? Song, something wrong. Bangalore. Yeah. So Bangalore. So autocomplete is also implemented, right? Let me search. Yep. So we have a very useful, good looking, simple single page weather app application, which is going to basically fetch in the weather information for a given city, right? So it's fetching the today's weather. So I'm in Bangalore. So weather is 25 degrees, feels like 26, humidity is 56. Similarly, it's going to show 7-day forecast, right? Let me check the units. Yeah, units also is working, right? Everything looks good, right? Right. So can you tell me which city you are from so that we can check whether the weather app is able to get the city information? Which city are you from? Let's give it a try. Anyone? Okay. Jalgaon, Maharashtra. Okay. It's auto completing. Yep, comparatively hot, right? 34 degrees Celsius. Okay, prediction is there that could be, okay, uh, light drizzle. Okay, I'm not sure. Kurnool, okay, let's see. Kurnool, somebody's telling Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh. Yeah, it's 31 degrees Celsius, right? Not much rain. Hyderabad, okay, many people from Hyderabad. 31 degrees, mainly clear, overcast it says. Okay, any other place? Chennai, okay, some of you from Chennai. Okay, 31 degrees, again it's cloudy, overcast, right? Chances of rain are there, right? Maybe it's raining already. Borivali, somebody's telling. Okay, I'm not going to type everything. You can generate this application. I don't think Borivali will show here. Ah, it's showing, yeah. Right, 30 degrees. Great. All right, guys. If you want to get weather, I would say build your own weather application. Right. So can you give it a try? Do you think you can build a weather application by using Claude? Are you confident? Do you want to make any changes to the application? Do you want to make any changes to the application? Is there any bug in this? Do you see any bug here? Quickly. Any bug? Usability bug, can you point out? Invalid city, okay. I'm typing it since it's auto completing, right? It no city is found, it says. Great, Piyush, good test case. Okay, very good test case. There is an overflow, good, right? So thunderstorm with slide, something it shows, right? So one bug is that this text is not fully visible, right? What is the other bug? Okay, Cricket Army says send notification to your phone when rains ready to start. All right, great. You can build that very well, I guess, but you need more details from the weather API, and you don't know how much you can trust it, right? So fantastic idea. Are you able to see this text placeholder search for a city? Yeah, somebody says Delhi. Let's have a look at Delhi. No, right? So this is not very readable, right? So let us prompt it here. Okay, the text input is white and not visible because of light blue background, right? So I just gave a prompt asking it to fix this. Let's see whether it works. Right, it'll take some time, but hopefully it will fix it. All right, other bug was this, right? Now here this text, right, is overlapping. Now it changed, right? You can see, right? It's live, it's fixing it, right? Search for city. Now this text is visible. If I type, let's say Bangalore, right, you can see here it's visible. Arepalli. Okay. Looks like people are interested to know their weather. Which Arepalli? Telangana? Chhattisgarh? No, this turned out another bug. What is the other bug? Telangana, right? Can you see this bug? So you can see here, when I type in something, it is showing duplicates, right? So what do you understand from this webinar? Can you blindly trust AI? Can you simply trust AI? No, right? This is a very simple application, by the way. Imagine you're building a very complex application. You cannot trust AI. You have to thoroughly review the code. You have to thoroughly test it. Now, if, right, who was that? Somebody asked for this, right? Cricket Army. I don't know what's your name, real name is. If you would not have told this name, we would not have basically come across this situation, right? So what do you think is important apart from basically generating code? Is testing very important? Right? If you are not having a very proper test cases and test suite, then you will end up in problems, right? So it is not just about generating the code, validating is also super critical. Let's say I can keep on basically giving prompts to AI and fix it, right? Okay. So I will stop here for today. So reason I took up this session was, many a time people are asking this question: what is the future of engineers? Will you be writing code or will you be generating code? And what is the amount of coding you are going to do in future, right? These type of questions pop up, right? And will AI completely replace humans, and so on, right? Yes, things are improving, right? I used a sonnet model to generate the code here, right? I can switch the model and use like more complex model here, right? So I'm using sonnet with 1 million context. I can use basically opus, which is basically more powerful. And I don't know whether you heard about this new model called as fable. Heard about this new model? It says disabled. Anyone? Do you read news, tech news? Yes or no? Have you heard about this? Yeah, now it's only for US citizens. Great, Madhav says, right? So this model got actually banned for non-US citizens. They say it for security reasons. Right? It has become so powerful that even US government has to intervene and basically stop it. So imagine the future, guys, right? So yes, it is, we are going into a zone wherein things are getting, right, changing very fast, right? So developers has to skill up very fast. So apart from getting core skills like learning about MERN Stack, right, software engineering, right, core subjects, it's also important that you learn how to use AI tools effectively, right? So that is what I wanted to basically conclude in today's webinar. Yes, having both skills are important. Knowledge about your domain, it could be web development, it could be mobile application development, it could be embedded systems development, it could be any other domain which you want to focus on, it could be finance, etc. But having knowledge about how to use AI is also very important so that you can survive tomorrow, right? Okay. So hope this session was useful for you, and you can start using AI agents which are freely available, right? You may have to basically get a free API token. Some of the companies provide free API tokens. You can see whether you're able to get it free of cost, especially students. Some of the AI companies do provide student licenses also, or you can check with your college. College can send an email telling that it's an suppose it's like academic institutions. Sometimes they give it for the academic institutions also. You can try, right? Or you can also try a local LLM installed on your laptop, but it's going to be expensive in terms of resources. Free of cost, but resources, if you don't have enough RAM or GPU, it's not going to work, right? So thank you everyone for attending this webinar, and I wish you all the best for your future sessions. Richa will be helping you to implement the complete project as well as add AI-based features. This is AI. What I showed is called as AI-assisted development. There you're going to do something called as AI engineering, wherein you're going to use APIs to invoke basically LLM models and get things done using that LLM model and integrate it to your backend using REST APIs. That's what you're going to do. So thank you all, and have a great internship session from WSA. Bye.